Good morning. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. I have spent my morning taking it a little bit easy because I'm feeling heavy today. And because of that, I considered not posting this, but I decided to spend a little time watching one of my favorite YouTubers who I love simply because it's all joy, it's happiness, and it made me feel light. I drank some coffee, and doing this really did help me feel a little bit better. And one of the reasons I decided to go ahead and not only post this, but record this morning is because what I'm talking about is actually authenticity. And it felt very fitting that I would just allow myself to be exactly where I'm at today and record and speak to this topic from such a real, honest, authentic place. And although the video isn't a sad video, you can probably feel my energy a little bit, just being a little bit heavier. But once I started talking, I started to feel better knowing that we were going to be here having this conversation and how powerful it is to share and to have a sense of community and to know that when I am being honest about where I'm at and how I'm feeling, that it actually helps to lighten how I feel. It helps to kind of disperse it. So I just want to thank you for holding space for me today. Well, I intend to hold space for you as well. I believe that authenticity is simply being truthful, being true, being honest about, in this case, ourselves. When I think about it from a spiritual standpoint, and when I say that, I mean with a lot of self-awareness and the intention of being more and more connected and being more and more aware of ourselves, I try to see things as what is outward and what's inward. Because when I am able to recognize the separation of the two, I am able to see everything so much more clearly. And so when it comes to authenticity, it's very much about, okay, there are all these things going on outside of me, around me, opinions and thoughts and all of that, but how do I actually feel? One of the ways that I started to recognize the difference is because the only time I would feel like regretful was when I did things or made decisions that were based on the opinions of other people, especially when there was that little something inside of me telling me to do something else. That for me, the authentic part is it's how I'm showing up, not just for other people, but for myself. I was allowing myself to be influenced by things outside of me because I was unsure and because I believe my ego wanted to try to convince me to do something else that was not in alignment with my most authentic self. When I say my most authentic self, I also mean my soul, my highest self, however it is that you identify with that. But it's also that part in us that is constant, that is peaceful, that is the voice that tells us yes or no or wait. The part of us also that always leads us to the right thing. It's taken me time to figure out who I actually am. And the reason it's taken time is because we're here living this human experience. We see kids who are so pure. They're filled with joy and laughter and imagination and all of the magic. Adults are not like that. We lose it. I think when we look at kids, that's such a good example of pure authenticity. But as we get older, we stop ourselves from being so open and vulnerable and filled with that magic. We become influenced by the people, places, experiences around us. To different degrees, those things affect us and how we're showing up. And I know for me, just for many different reasons, I feel like I really lost myself. I've watched home videos where I see myself as a little girl before I got to kind of a certain age. I know that little girl. I remember how she felt. I like that. It's still such a part of me, my most inner, authentic, real self. And then I'll see videos later or photos that bring back memories, and I remember how disconnected I felt. That's when my anxiety and things started, because I started seeking outside of me to navigate my life, to make decisions, to figure out who I was. And to an extent, that's normal. That's what we do, especially as we get into middle school and high school and become friends with different people. But ultimately, being authentic is recognizing who we are regardless of other people and experiences. And now, as an adult, as much as we think it's easy maybe for adults to be totally tuned into their authentic selves, I don't think it is always if people are not conscious of how they're approaching things, what their thoughts are, how they're showing up. I think it can be really easy to start to recognize where you are or are not being fully authentic to yourself, especially with other people. They're kind of a mirror back to us. How often you are influenced, your decisions are influenced by somebody else's opinion. It doesn't matter if you're 10 years old or 40 years old, those things are still happening so often. It was in those moments that I was able to start to recognize where I wanted to connect more to who I am at my core and less to the things outside of me. And one of the ways that I started to understand that was actually how I felt. When I make decisions that feel totally authentic to me, there is such this still, calm inner knowing of what that yes or no is. I believe what happens is our egos kind of get in the way and get loud and try to talk us in or out of things. But for us, it's about recognizing that we are actually not our thoughts. We're not our ego. Our most authentic selves lives independently from that. Those are a part of our experience, but we are not our thoughts. We are not our ego. And our ego is what is connecting and comparing us to the things outside of us. For me lately, one of the things I've been trying to be extremely conscious of is in moments when I don't feel good about something, recognizing, oh, this is actually my ego. I can make a choice here. I don't have to follow through on this loop that happens, this reactive loop. I can actually pause here and say, okay, I recognize this. I feel this. I am fully aware of this. Maybe I'm not always sure what to do instead. That's going to be a better decision for me or response. But just first becoming aware of that is so powerful. And then it is seeing yourself enough in those situations that you can start to connect these dots and start to recognize that you're the common denominator in these experiences. As you become aware of the repetition of these experiences, the familiar feeling that happens, then you're able to actually get the hindsight to say, okay, I'm seeing this happening quite a bit. I don't like how it ends up making me feel. What is a better way I could respond in these situations? When it comes to people, it could just be saying thank you for your suggestion. And whether you actually say that or you recognize that it can just be a suggestion, you don't have to actually take what somebody says and do that. And I think that there can be fear of being unsure about how you should navigate it then if you're not seeking the advice and opinions and support of other people. But as you start to do this, you'll build that confidence and the noise of what's outside of you will start to get quieter, and that still peaceful part of you within will get louder. Actually, I'm not sure I would describe it as getting louder as much as I'd say you're just able to connect to it more. You're able to connect to that more because you're not looking outside of you as much. So that's actually what's getting quieter. And you recognize that that part that's within you has been there all along. When it comes to being authentic, it is so much about recognizing where I'm at inside of me, then being able to kind of draw lines between that and what's outside of me. I believe that one of the reasons it's so hard for people to do that is because we are so used to doing things the way we do them. We're so used to the noise of everything outside of us that we don't even know how to connect to that quiet part of ourselves. Connecting to myself has happened through meditation. It has happened through listening more, talking less. It has happened through finding more of those quiet moments, going for walks in nature, runs, whatever it is, and not listening to anything. Because if you always have something that is on, that's stimulating you, you can't actually slow down. You need to actually be able to quiet the stimulation to recognize the part of you that's been there all along. That's always there. I have been running for, I calculated it recently, over 20 years now, which is crazy. I stopped listening to music when I was running several years ago. I think it happened on accident once when my phone didn't work or my earphones didn't work or something like that. Ended up being the best thing ever. And I started doing it more and more, or trying to say, okay, I won't listen to music for the first 5 minutes or something. But by doing this, I don't even bring my phone half the time now. I just have my watch. That is one of the times when I get the absolute most creative ideas. That's when I feel like I can connect so much. It's when I'm working on my presence, recognizing the feeling of the air on my skin, the trees that I'm running by, what the sky looks like, what the temperature feels like, being so present that I can feel exactly where I'm at and what's in front of me, because it's in that space that I actually get to connect to my authentic self. In order to fully connect to yourself and really start feeling more aligned with your most authentic self, you have to actually nurture that part of you. And that part of you is in the quiet moments. That's where you find it. Finding those moments to recognize, if you are out and you're having a situation and you say, okay, I just left this situation. I don't like how I feel. I know that how I responded or reacted isn't what feels most aligned to me, or that you didn't respond at all because you didn't know how to. It's about having time after that to quietly process, start to recognize what feels authentic. And I will also say that trying to actively find an answer is also not usually how it comes to me. For me, it's having these quiet moments and not actually thinking of anything, but allowing this quiet space so that when I am supposed to get more insight, I'm able to actually hear it and connect to it. It always comes. It's just not always in the moment and time we want it to. But as long as we are taking that time to get quiet and to connect to ourselves, it will come. Be as present as you can be. Focus on your breath, and then spend some time still being quiet. And if you start to do that every single day, those little quiet moments will add up. You will find more quiet moments, even in the chaos, even as the day gets louder and busier. You will find more of that. You will find yourself connecting more to that quiet part within you. You'll recognize how loud your thoughts are and how loud the world around you is. And it's good because you need to become aware of how loud it is so you can actually start to turn that volume down. It is in these few minutes a day, starting with just those few minutes in the morning, that you start to connect more to yourself, more to the world around you, more to being present. That adds up. It is those moments that have totally changed my life, from being so disconnected, so in my ego, so just my whole life being dictated by my ego and the opinions of the people around me, to now completely opposite, feeling more tuned into myself now than I ever have before. It has come from simple things. It's come from gardening. It's come from my runs with no music, my walks in the morning or any time of day, my dedication to my meditations or journaling or taking a bath. It's not putting music on in the car sometimes. It is in these simple little things within my routine. No matter how busy you are or how much you have going on, you can find just a few moments every day where you are just getting quiet and getting more present with yourself and connecting to who you are at your core, because that is your most authentic self. That's the part of you that will lead you, that will give you the best insight, give you all of the opportunities that you want to take at the highest level you can experience. It's that part of you that will lead you and guide you to that. But if you can't hear it, if you can't connect to that, you aren't going to have those experiences. And if you are always looking outside of yourself for answers, it's not authentic either, because what's authentic is within. And we don't necessarily live in societies where that is encouraged as much. We have to find it. We have to find it for ourselves. We have to find it even in the busyness of family life, the busyness of high stress jobs, but we have to make this as much a priority as everything else, because everything else will be better and feel better, and more of our lives on the outside will start to align with our most authentic selves if we're connected to that part of us. But the things outside of us can't have any changes if we are not first aligned with ourselves inside of us. I think that the most important part of becoming more connected to your most authentic self is always remembering that everything that is most authentic to you is within you. You can do things outside you and take action to connect more to that, but ultimately it's always going to be found within you. So if you're looking for it outside and you're having a hard time connecting to it, it's because of that. You need to connect to who you are within, what your instincts are, what your heart is telling you, what your gut is telling you, and maybe spend some time reflecting on moments in your past when you've either felt so good about a decision you made. How did you make that decision? Was it by seeking outside advice, or was that something that you did on your own by listening to your instincts? Start to remember that, recognizing that feeling and connecting to it more and more, you're going to strengthen it. And maybe think about times when you've had regrets of decisions that you've made, or comments or anything like that. It is most likely because there were aspects of that decision that came from taking advice or opinions or influence from things outside of you. So just keep this in mind as you are thinking about this in your own life and working to connect more to your most authentic self. And most of the time, we need to not worry about what we're doing more of. It's actually what we need to do less of. I am so glad you've been here with me for this conversation today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye.